J Dilla is the most legendary producer of all time. I don't think too many people would argue with that statement. Here we go!
One of my favorite producers of all time. He just had a crazy sound.
We gotta make music, and we think like if Dilla was alive, would he like this? Like I have to work on behalf of Dilla.
Not only completely reinvented the sound of hip-hop in the mid-90s, but he accomplished something that no producer had ever accomplished before and no one has been able to accomplish ever since.
He made people want to actually play like his beats.
Drummers want to sound like Dilla, bass players want to sound like Dilla. He didn't just change hip-hop, he changed all of music forever. Even now in 2022, 16 years after his death, people are still trying to solve the puzzle behind J Dilla's legendary sound. If you're new to the channel, my name is Talenti. Let's get into the video. This song is called I Can't Stand to See You Cry by the Escorts, and it's the track Dilla flipped into one of my favorite beats of all time, Don't Cry. J Dilla composed this beat in 2005 for one of his most iconic albums, Donuts. He made the entire album, including this track, while on a hospital bed at the Cedars Medical Center in Los Angeles undergoing treatment for a rare blood disease called lupus, which would ultimately be the cause of his death in 2006. But his story starts long before that, on the other side of the country in a small house in the east side of Detroit in 1974. His parents, Maureen and Beverly Yancey, also had musical backgrounds and exposed young James to all kinds of music from jazz to soul, R&B, gospel, you name it. It was during high school though when Jay fell in love with hip-hop and when he met his classmates T3 and Batten. The trio would soon later become the historic rap group Slum Village. It's around this time when Dilla, who was going by JD at the time, got introduced to beat making. He didn't really have any equipment and he would just use a simple tape deck to overdub drum breaks with songs and just make beats. I called it a simple tape deck, but making beats like that sounds like a literal nightmare. It sounds impossible. Nonetheless, he spent most of his teenage years locked away in his basement just making music and leaving the house only to visit local record stores to buy records for his growing collection. Something huge was about to happen though, something that would shape his sound for the rest of his career and would allow him to express his full genius potential. We're in 1992 and Jay gets invited by some friends to come make beats at M. Fiddler's studio. M. Fiddler, by the way, is a songwriter also from Detroit who at the time was working with huge groups like Funkadelic and Parliament and artists like Prince. He's a big deal. Anyway, he taught him how to chop samples, how to play drums on the pad, how to layer stuff, all the stuff that would become the core of Dilla's productions. Well, at this point, my question as a producer is, what are really the elements of Dilla's production? For the sake of this video, we're gonna divide it in three categories: sampling, drum programming, and bass. Let's start with sampling. So there are two main techniques that Dilla used to flip samples. The first one is called lifting. This technique doesn't really modify the original song that much. It's all about carefully listening to tracks until you can find a little spot that you can loop and build on top. For example, you can hear Dilla using this technique in Get This Money by Slum Village. This song is called Come Running to Me by Herbie Hancock, and it's the sample Dilla flipped into this. The second technique Dilla used for sampling is chopping. This is when you take a piece of audio, you slice it up into smaller pieces, and you reorganize those pieces into something new. He definitely wasn't the first producer to chop a sample, but he was the best at it. Let's talk about drum programming real quick. This is what made Dilla shine above all other producers, and it's probably the part of his production that left the biggest mark on just music in general. This is how the Roots drummer Questlove described the first moment he heard a Dilla beat.
It was the most life-changing moment I ever had. Like I had to get out of the car. Whereas this part is normal. It sounded like the kick drum was played by like a drunk 3-year-old. So it's like, what the hell is that?
As a trained drummer myself, coming right out of college after years of perfecting my timing and trying to sound as clean as possible, what the hell is that is pretty much the same reaction I had when I first heard a Dilla beat. It literally blew my mind, and honestly, it changed my life forever. I'm not even exaggerating, Dilla's drum grooves are literally the reason why I started producing hip-hop in the first place. Okay, so let me give you a quick example of how he built his grooves. This is the beat from a song called Running by The Far Side, produced by J Dilla. So if we open up the beat in Ableton, we can take a look at it and see that none of the notes line up with the grid. Like this one is late, this one is super late, this one is a little bit early, this one is a little bit early. It's all over the place. Clearly by looking at this, he played this live on his MPC. He didn't quantize it, he didn't fix it. He played this like a drummer would, not like a producer. In fact, you know what? Just for fun, let's go in and try to fix it. Put it all on the grid, see what it sounds like. this hurts. I mean, like 90% of the groove is just gone. So how do we replicate this kind of groove? There are a few different things that we can do. First, we can play around with velocities. A human drummer would never be able to play two notes exactly the same. Then we can either play our kick and snare live, or we can program them on the grid and then move them around. There is no science, there's no perfect method for this. In fact, perfection is the opposite of what Dilla wanted. He wanted the imperfect human element of the groove to really come through even though the beat was programmed. After all, music is a form of human expression and humans are imperfect. Before Dilla, most hip-hop bass lines were directly sampled from old jazz and funk records. So the sound would usually be either an electric bass or an upright acoustic bass. Even when it came to bass, Dilla did something different. He recorded most of his bass lines on his custom Mini-Moog Voyager synth. The really cool thing about his bass lines is that really often they acted almost as a counter melody to the sample. He wouldn't just follow the chord progression of the sample, but he would often straight up compose a new bass line that would complement the sample perfectly. Okay, so there's obviously a lot more detail and nuance to the sound of Dilla. We could talk about this for days. Well, I've been talking for a minute, I want to make some music. Let's take all the stuff we learned, try to apply it, and hopefully make something cool. Alright, first things first, let me open up TrackLib. We need a sample.
It's so hard, baby.
Ooh, so good! I want to narrow it down a little bit. I'm going to go on genres. Let's pick R&B and soul, see what we can find. Okay, this is it. We found our sample. Oh, by the way, if you guys don't know what TrackLib is, the website we just used to find the sample is basically an online record store with over 100,000 songs that you can just download, clear right on the website, and you can use them for whatever music you want. So if you pick any of the samples on their website and you make a song, you want to release it, you just pay a little fee and you can use it however you want to. No legal repercussions, no headaches, none of that stuff. So shout out to TrackLib for sponsoring this video and supporting the channel. Make sure to click the link at the top of the description for a 30-day free trial and 15 free downloads from any of the songs on their website. So good. Okay, we got our sample, let's chop it up. Okay, so I think I'm gonna take this piano melody and I'm gonna use it as a counter melody for the main sample. Bring back the sample. Hey! Whew. Dude, this beat's about to be crazy. Okay, we need some drums. So I'm actually gonna go back to TrackLib and I'm gonna look for a drum break that we can chop up. Whew. Okay, this is it. Okay, we did the sample, we did the drums, we need bass. Unfortunately, I don't have a Moog Voyager Mini, but I have the closest thing to it, the Arturia Mini. Poof, that's it. Alright, that's it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you on the next one, and as always, remember to be positive, and positive things will happen.